Megan. I'm the content coordinator at Siyavula Education, based in South Africa. So Siyavula is, as you know, it might be a tricky word to pronounce, but it's an Nguni word which means we are opening. And we are a social enterprise based in South Africa, and we see ourselves working at the intersection of community, openness, and technology to create open educational resources for all learners and teachers in South Africa. So a bit of history about Siyavula and how we came about. In 2002, our current CEO, Mark Horner, started a project to develop maths and science textbooks for learners for grade 10 to 12. And he worked with a group of volunteers, and they came up with these set of resources called the Free High School Science Text. This project grew and grew, and in response to the success of the project, the Shuttleworth Foundation then hired Mark to run the project Siyavula within the foundation, with the aim of developing OERs for grade 1 to 9 in South Africa for all subjects. And they trained over 1,000 teachers in the development of content and online collaboration. Then in 2010, our government, the Department of Education, approached Siyavula and asked if we would align our existing free high school science text to the national curriculum to be distributed to the whole country. And this gave a unique opportunity to launch the company Siyavula Education with an investment from PSG Group Limited. And the Shuttleworth Foundation is still a shareholder in our company. I joined in 2011, and since then, Siyavula has almost tripled in size, so we really are growing. And the focus now is on sustainability and scalability. And we really are still focusing on the production of OERs, but also looking for innovative ways to use technology to generate revenue. And Mark Horner, our CEO, will be presenting more on the business model behind Siyavula on Friday. So what we have done so far. As I mentioned, we have the maths and physical sciences textbooks for grade 10 to 12. These are based on our existing resources from several years ago. And this year we just completed the alignment of our grade 12 textbooks to the national curriculum to be distributed to the whole country next year. Last year I coordinated the production of grade 4 to 6 workbooks, and this year the books I've been working on are grade 7 to 9. And I have some of these copies here with me. We also have websites which support these resources. And our Department of Education has and will be printing all of these textbooks for every learner in a government school in South Africa. They have done so for the past 2 years and will be doing so next year as well. At Siyavula, we really believe that technology enables and enriches the learning experience. Not only are our books available in print, but also online. And we really believe that access to our content has been enabled through our use of mobile technology. Whether a learner is in a rural school or top-end private school, most of them have mobile phones. And the use of our content on mobile has really grown over the past few years. In January 2012, we launched the Everything Maths and Science websites, and we have about 500,000 visitors, unique visitors per month using our content. And we also have our content on a chat room service called Mixit, which is very popular amongst the youth in South Africa. So basically they add us as a content and can then access all the content almost for free. It costs about 0.2 cents, South African cents per message. Last year I focused on how we create an open textbook, specifically the grade 4 to 6 books. So we strongly believe in collaborative authoring, and this is through the use of volunteers and workshops and also online. This year I want to focus a bit more on openness and how our open culture at Siyavula is really strengthening the impact of the work that we do. So what do we mean by open processes? Well, as I said, our authoring is done collaboratively and in an open way. So last year we had authoring workshops with volunteers, ranging from educators to postgraduate students in the subject that we were authoring, curriculum advisors, and also some government officials, all coming together for 3 weekend workshops to author the content. We learned a lot from these workshops, specifically that volunteers are not trained authors, and especially educators have problems with learning at a fast pace how to use our authoring tools. But what we found was the most beneficial was the sharing of ideas at these workshops. So taking this forward and developing our model for collaborative authoring, This year, we then decided to scrap the authoring at the workshops and just focus on solely brainstorming around the content. We really found that this was our most successful workshop yet. Teachers felt at ease to share their ideas based on their teaching practice, what they found worked in classrooms, and they really came away from learning from the experience. And we had some great ideas to then go and author from. So not only are we talking about collaborative authoring, but the whole process remains open. So what we do is that we then go and author online, and for these books, we actually use Google Docs. The benefit of using this is that once a chapter is ready for review, we then release it in comment mode to volunteers, who then come on and give their feedback using the comment tool. And what we found is that volunteers then started to not only give feedback and take ownership for their comments, because it's done in a transparent way, but also started to engage with each other, responding, debating, disagreeing, and really having amazing conversations about the content. And not only is this done with volunteers in the general public, but also at the national level. So this is a photo here from our workshop with the government officials in July. And we had a workshop to actually discuss the content, and then we went to an online review where they gave their input. And this was done in the same way as all other volunteers. And what we found is that the government officials then really bought into the process as well, as it wasn't done by yourself. They were really engaging with each other and with other educators. I then respond to the feedback and implement these changes. And we've really found that volunteers then feel that they've contributed in a meaningful way. And not only does this facilitate adoption in the long run, but it really helps these people to take ownership of the book, and they have a vested interest in the success. So they're more likely to give feedback and also provide us with real-world use cases of how they're using the content. As George Seaman said earlier, it's not just about open content, but open everything. And we really believe that this will help the content to travel as far as possible. So not just using open copyright licenses, all our content is available under CC BY, but embracing open standards and also using open source software in the development of these books. So as far as possible, we try and use open source software, whether it's storing everything on GitHub, using open simulations and videos. And as I said, we use Google Docs, but and although this is not open, it's an interim solution to the OER Pub. And unfortunately, Kathy Fletcher's busy presenting on the OER Pub next door, but I would recommend you, if anyone's interested in an editor, an online editor, this is the way that we're going to be going forward. It really is going to provide a solution where teachers can come online and edit the content in their own time and make it as easy as possible for them to do this. So the second thing I want to talk about is actually promoting open in an open title. So most of us come to conferences such as these and tell each other about what we're doing, but all of us here fully understand the benefits of open, otherwise we wouldn't be doing this work in the first place. But how do we get that information out to the people that really matters? What I'd like to draw your attention to is to this logo, which is on the cover of all of our books. It's the Department of Basic Education. So not only have they reviewed and endorsed all of our books, but they actually have printed these books for all learners in South Africa. So by next year, we'll have about 10 million copies of these books in circulation in South Africa. So not only is this a huge achievement in making education resources accessible, but it also provides a unique opportunity to actually start to educate people about what open means. So educators and parents are given these resources for free, but do they actually understand what it means to them? So what I've tried to do this year is to populate the content with little bits of information about what open actually means. So if you take a look at these books, you'll see that in the margins, there are these margin boxes, which I've showed a few here. And in the teacher's guide, we've included little bits of information, whether you want to learn about Creative Commons or you want to watch a video about what open education means and why it matters. And also pointing out, for example, that all the photographs and illustrations are under an open license, and where teachers can go and find these resources themselves, whether it's on Flickr or using a CC search. Secondly, I think it's very important to actually engage learners about open. I only learned about open educational resources in my final year of Masters, And I still have a bookshelf of heavy textbooks which I'm too scared to get rid of because I paid so much for them. But I think if we really want open education to make a difference, learners need to be aware of what's out there. And we can start at university level and tell students about the high cost savings if they use OERs. But I think we can start even earlier at high school and even primary school, teaching and engaging learners in an unobtrusive but engaging way about how they can actually use these OERs. So for example, most of these margin boxes have science content in them, but some of them will relate to open educational resources, the fact that they can find this content online or on their phones, and also pointing out some of the software that we use that they can also download for free. For example, all the concept maps which are made at the end of each chapter were produced using an open source software program called CMAP Tools, and learners can also download this and use them for themselves. Besides open education, my second passion is science education and instilling in learners a curiosity for the world around them. And what better way to do this than to engage learners in real-world science through use of citizen science. So where possible, I've included links to citizen science projects such as planet hunters and searching for planets which are habitable in our universe, or learning how to fold proteins, or even more local projects such as Mammal Map, where learners submit photos of mammals they've taken and take note of the dates and time. And I think that through engaging in citizen science, learners will also see the benefits of open access and making research as widely available as possible. And hopefully they'll take this forward with them in their future careers. So what do we hope this achieves? Well, as I've said, we really see that this strengthens the work that we do. It helps to build a community around the textbooks, and this facilitates adoption, as people that are involved in an open process then go and seed their own communities of practice in their own communities. We really see that this is having a broader impact in South Africa. At government level, the officials that we are engaging with, are starting to understand the benefits of open policy. The general public is given an opportunity to get involved in an education project with an impact and make a meaningful contribution. Normally people want to get involved, but they just don't know how. So if you give them that opportunity, even if it's just doing some proofreading in their own time, they really feel like they're part of something bigger. Educators are learning about and using OERs, and over time we hope that they'll start to see the benefits of OER and actually adapt these resources to their local context. And lastly, learners are engaging with a living resource and understanding what OER means to them. Not only is this about understanding open, but also taking this forward so that they start to understand that education and access to resources is a possibility and not just a dream. So lastly, I wanted to speak about the future at Siyavula. We are currently embarking on a project to produce the 50 most crucial textbooks needed for school-level STEM performance. At the moment, we're engaging with the relevant education authorities at government level for official review and endorsement at the national level so they can then be made as widely distributed as possible, whether it's in print, online, or mobile. These resources will be some of the most accessible educational resources in the country. We see this taking 3 years, and we have the phases and the different textbooks marked out. But what we're looking for at the moment is sponsors and partnerships to come and make this project possible. We're looking locally and also internationally. So if anyone here is keen to chat or has any ideas and would like to become a part of this project, whether in partnering or providing sponsorship, please don't hesitate to contact us. We really are eager to get this going. Thank you.
You ask for questions?
Yeah.
Christopher.
Megan, so I guess I was in a presentation that you made 2 years ago here.
Mm-hmm.
My name is Don King. I'm from Nebraska. And one of the things that I walked away from that previous presentation was the fact that Siyavula was really kind of a not-for-profit organization. It sounds like you kind of moved from that into more of a revenue-based textbook building orientation. Is that correct?
No, well, as I said, We've become full profit since 2010.
Yeah, okay.
So when I presented last year, we were full profit.
Okay.
Before that, it was a non-profit organization incubated within the Siyavula Foundation. But since then, when we've become separate, we are full profit now. But everything that we produce with the community, so all our textbooks and resources are available on an open license. We do have other services which we generate revenue from, but that's not related to textbooks.
So one of the things that you had mentioned last year was that you were looking at ways to improving the delivery of education to some of the to school-age children across the country of South Africa. And are you looking at any teacher training issues now? Or are you really still focusing on content, it sounds like?
Yeah, so at the moment we really are just focused on content production. Okay. Teacher training is just a huge undertaking, and the department officials actually take advantage of, well, they actually run that. But one of the advantages of actually involving the government officials in this open process this year is that those provincial officials have now each gone back to their provinces and have an understanding of this textbook. Because before they were just given it and they didn't understand what it actually meant. But now that they're actually been involved in this process, we hope that that'll filter down to educators. So we don't actively engage with educators in training, although we do engage with them in the broader community. But we really hope that from government level will start to filter down about how they can actually use these resources.
Thank you.
I guess I have sort of two questions that I think are sort of the same question. So I'm wondering, has any other jurisdiction tried, or have you worked with anyone else to try to get your materials to then get remixed or realigned to a different set of curricular standards in South Africa? And I guess if the answer is yes, it sort of answers my second question. If the answer is no, then could you imagine that happening? Like, are the materials constructed in a way that, especially the digital materials, where you could imagine someone sitting down and saying, here's our, state or country standards for this body of material, and we'll just need to rearrange elements, or there's a few gaps we might need to fill in, that kind of thing. Like, would that be a hard task, or what?
No, I'm really glad you asked that, because as I mentioned, Kathy is busy presenting on this exact topic next door, so it's really unfortunate that I talked at the same time. But yes, that has actually taken place a few months ago, and what we did was, in South Africa, we have the government system and then also the private schools, and the private schools have their own set of assessment guidelines. So what they did was they took our existing textbooks, and in a workshop over 5 days, they reworked it and remixed it to their guidelines. And what we did was we used Kathy Fletcher's editor to do this, and we sucked it in from GitHub, and then educators were able to edit this online. And it was also a learning process in the development of the editor, because there were lots of issues which came up which have now been fixed. But this was using educators in the classroom, and they were able to edit this content, because before that we just had our content was either in XML or LaTeX, and that's not really easy for the ordinary person to edit. But we're really hoping that using an editor such as this OER Hub editor will really make it more accessible for teachers who have no prior training to just come online and edit our books. And so this has taken place, and we've learned a lot from that process, and really hope that it'll go forward from there.
So I have a follow-up question, I think, to Rach, and that is, what about updating? And how is that envisioned? I mean, you certainly have a very sophisticated collaborative process that you've got started for the workshops and all the other building of content. What are you envisioning for updating? Because those standards will change.
Yes, definitely. And the reason that we actually were able to roll out these textbooks each year through government distribution is that they've implemented a new curriculum. But this curriculum still has flaws in it and will be changed or modified each year. And so we need to improve our content and also fix any errata that were identified. And once again, we're going to be drawing on the community to do this. And we put up the books up online, whether it's on a tool called Annotate, and people can come in and make comments, and then we'll do a rework. And at the moment, we're actually developing a model to do this, and we have one chapter up from our grade 10 physical sciences textbook. and our team back home is busy running this. And within a few weeks, we have over 300 comments from 30 different people. And it's only a 20-page document, so each page is just filled with comments. And this was a document which was already being approved by the government for distribution. So that just shows you, with this community engagement, how much better you can actually make it. So this is a process which, once we have our textbooks developed, will now be entering into the second phase, which is revising them. And that'll be drawing on the strengths of the community again.
What do you do in the area of language education?
You mean specifically
Learning languages?
So our team is predominantly maths and science focused. I think most of us came out of university as postgraduates and ended up at Siyavula. So at the moment we're focused specifically on STEM subjects, and our future books that we're going to be branching into are more geography, accounting, those sort of subjects. And at the moment, languages are a bit further afield. One thing we will be looking at though is that, especially in the lower grades, a lot of learners switch to English in grade 4 from their mother tongue instruction, and we have 11 official languages in South Africa. And this is a huge issue because they now have to learn science and maths content plus a new language. So we are going to be looking at the impact of that